Welcome to Dungeons and Gamers, a real play D&D podcast about dungeons that are participated in by people who play video games. I'm Bryce, and I play the half-orc ranger Fergus Bog.
I'm Erin. I play the wood elf bard Cookie Kebler.
I'm Beckers, and I play the asterisk human barbarian Bear.
I'm Matt, and I play the tiefling sorcerer Morthos.
I'm Darian. I play the high elf rogue Belladonna.
And I'm Katie Quixotic, and I am your game master and storyteller who plays everyone else in the world.
Last time on Dungeons and Gamers.
So there I was, having robbed the Purple Scepter blind, gotten back my mom's necklace, and the entire Waterdeep Guard trying to find us. But I still had to retrieve my crown from the pawnbroker. So I took the human woman named Bear, who used to be a bear before the heist. You know what? That's a story for later. And we strolled through town to pick it up. Easy as eel pie. They had no idea. I wanted to stay in town and maybe try and work up some goodwill for the bog name. It will certainly help with my bid for king if I return to Faraway as the hero of the Sword Coast. But the group I hired for the heist wanted to book it out of town, and I wasn't in a position to find a new crew, especially since this group proved themselves very formidable. The guild, which provided us faulty information for the heist, offered us a way out of the city in exchange for a job, which they didn't mention till we were almost on the boat, that it was a babysitting job, as they gave us a kid named Elio to deal with on the mission, which I guess is to go to an island and punch some people who are giving their guild a bad name. I swear they waited till we were in those sweet-smelling sewers to tell us, as I was too caught up on nostalgia about Ma and Pa to throw a fuss. So we met the captain, boarded the ship, and we're on to the next adventure. And if you bring me a drink, I'll tell you what happened next.
And that brings us to now.
So, you have all just boarded the ship that's waiting for you at the harbor. The captain, who you recently met, Bart, turns his red and white clothing sort of billowing in the breeze that is coming off of the ocean, and he begins shouting, not shouting perhaps, but loudly enough for everyone to hear, giving orders to the people that are scurrying around decks. They're lowering sails, they're making ready to depart, and after a short time, you start to feel just the gentle movement of the ship as it starts to pull away from the dock. And there's that sort of moment of calm that comes when you are pretty sure, at least at this point, that it seems like you've made it out with everyone, with all of the things that you grabbed, and without too much issue. So you might take some solace in that. At some point, Bart will come back to you after, a few. It looks like things are ready. Like, he doesn't really need to be giving too much direction anymore. Everybody knows what they're doing. They're heading on their course. And he comes sweeping back, his red cloak sort of billowing behind him. Says, "Holly here, I'll show you to where you'll be staying." And behind him, as he kind of steps to the side, is a very short, apparently dwarven woman. She's got curly hair that's sort of done up, pulled back very tightly. She's got very exquisitely painted makeup on, sort of like sun-bleached skin. She still has the sort of air about her of someone who lives their life on the sea. And on her back, that anyone could easily see strapped a lyre. And she kind of smiles. There's like a cheeky little glint in her eye as she says, "Yes, of course, follow me, follow me." She takes you down below and shows you where generally the crew is staying, but there's kind of a little like set aside place for all of you. There looks to be like a trunk for you to kind of store anything you might want to store. And there is slightly makeshift, but still very well intended, sort of like a privacy curtain, so that you're not just there with a bunch of people that you don't know. There's a hammock present for each of you. She shows you how you can set them up, but then kind of stow them away so that you do have a bit of space if you need it for anything. And then lets you know if you need anything, let anyone who happens to be awake know, and we'll do our best to make sure you have what you need. Do you have any questions?
What's the food situation like?
Oh, we have a wonderful cook. She makes everything taste better than it should.
That
Mm.
that sounds weird.
Well, on shorter voyages, it isn't as much of an issue because you spend a lot of time being able to stop and get fresh supplies. But when you're out on the open water for quite some time, this bread gets stale and a little dry, and it just never really tastes stale and dry.
Frigus kind of like looks down at Rascal, and then he like looks at the woman and just kind of like nods, kind of like, okay, I'm just gonna accept these things she's saying, but kind of in a way of like, I'm going to investigate this food later.
Perfect.
How long is our voyage?
Oh, only about 5 days, and most of those will be along the coast. Well, about 2.5, maybe half and half or so. But mostly along the coast, and then just a short dip across the sea.
Okay.
It should be fine.
Are we making any stops along the way?
We are going to make a brief stop at another port before we actually make the trek across the open ocean. So if there's anything you need when we stop, there will be a short window for you to make landfall yourselves. But if you're not back when we're ready to return, we will leave you. Tight schedule.
Good to know.
She doesn't sound threatening when she says that. It's very like easygoing and straightforward. Just kind of like a FYI though, these are the rules.
So this boat was not hired specifically to take us where we're going. That we're like basically like on a, public transport. Like we got a train ticket.
We were hired to take you where you're going, but have you ever been a sailor?
I've been on a boat. I haven't sailed myself. No.
It's almost similar to the adventuring life. You have something main, perhaps, that you're working on, or a specific goal that you're working towards, and along the way you find other things to fill the time or put some coin in your pocket or acquire something interesting. So we were hired to take you, and that is our goal. But we also aren't going to spend an extra 3 days at port because you get lost while poking your noses around somewhere. We know how adventurers are. Very similar to how sailors are, actually.
Frigus just kind of like does the same deal of like, okay, and not like that kind of look of like, they're saying weird stuff, but I'm just gonna nod because this is not a conversation I'm interested in having.
Are you not? Maybe I've misjudged. Are you not adventurers?
Hey,
we're
You look the part, certainly.
I'm adventurous as hell.
You could say we're on an adventure, but
We're new adventurers.
Ah, okay. Well, I sense the spirit about you either way. And if there's nothing else, then I'll take my leave. She kind of gives like a short bow. She kind of gives you like a nod cookie. You can tell, and there's like a little wink, and it's not like a sly wink or anything like that. It's kind of like as she looks over, it sees that you are very clearly like musically inclined, or have like a similar sort of like skill set lifestyle that she does, and is kind of like the professional recognition before she kind of steps out from behind the curtain and leaves you to your own devices.
All right, don't stray too far from the ship.
I mean, there's really
got it.
nowhere else we can go. Unless you're going to go swimming.
Do me a favor. We're going to, first roll of today's session, just see how well everyone does with being out on the water.
That's what I was just thinking,
I was actually gonna roll that as soon as you started saying the boat pulled out, but I was like, I'll wait. Because
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm sure it probably wouldn't hit until like you've been out there for a little bit.
Until the waves really start making you have to get like your
Yeah.
sea legs and get used to the
Mhm.
constant motion. So yeah, everybody go ahead and make just we'll say it's the Constitution save. Like you're not saving against anything, but yeah.
16 for Fergus.
14 for Bear.
10 for Morthos.
7 for Belladonna.
12 for Cookie.
11 for Rascal.
Okay, perfect. The first few minutes that you've been on the ship, it's probably only been like 30 minutes. You've kind of been whisked away downstairs. You've been given a lot of instructions. Everything's kind of been pretty quick. And everyone's feeling fine. There's a little bit of like unease to you, Belladonna. You're not actually actively sick feeling. It's not like you're going to run for the railings anytime soon. But you do have a bit of this sense that this motion, there's going to be a moment where it's either going to get too much for you or you're going to become accustomed to it. And you know that you're just going to have to give it a little bit of time to see if you can kind of like get your bearings and center yourself. But everybody's fine for the moment. Elio's kind of standing quietly in the corner. There's a hammock that's available in this space for them as well. And they look completely content, just kind of glancing around at everyone, listening to what you're saying. Doesn't seem to be any sign of any sort of like trepidation or unease on their face. In general, you all have noticed as you made your way through the ship, there's a pretty standard crew size. It doesn't look like it's too super scant. Unless you're incredibly familiar with sailing, you wouldn't necessarily know the minimum level, but you can tell that there's like enough people on board for it for there to always be a little bit of activity, but it doesn't seem overly crowded and it doesn't seem like a super skeleton crew or anything like that. There is.
Does it look like there's a kid with who joined the crew because he had a treasure map and for some reason got stuck washing the ship even though he hired the crew?
Oh my gosh.
Me trying to think of what this is a reference
That's
to.
that's
Treasure Planet?
Treasure Planet, yeah.
I've never
It's
seen
always
Treasure Planet.
bothered me that they clearly hired the crew to go seek the treasure and Hawkins got stuck like being like working for them and it's like you hired them. Why are you working for them?
hmm
Yeah, that doesn't seem like good storytelling.
Yeah.
Like you're the person with the money. Why are they putting you to work? Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry they didn't get your reference. Very good reference.
But no.
There does not actually markedly of everyone you've seen, there have not been any children. And it's not entirely uncommon for there to be children on board ships. Sometimes there are tight spaces that a small body might need to get into. Sometimes it's easier for them to climb up and down things more quickly. Sometimes they are related to a crew member, but not a single child actually
Except for
that you've seen so far.
except for Elio.
Except for Elio. Yeah, I mean, I guess from Elven standards, they're definitely very young. Very, very young. So
Probably
they would
not
be
a child.
Not a
though.
child.
Hmm.
Yeah. Definitely like a fully mature adult, just lacking the wisdom of somebody who might have made it there a couple hundred years so far.
Like maybe an early college kid or something.
Yeah,
Old enough to become a Pokemon trainer.
exactly. Old enough to drink.
Yeah.
There you go.
You know. So, as you kind of all shuffle about, is there anything in particular anyone's wanting to do? Taking tours of the ship, asking questions, anything like that?
I think Fergus would probably just like find some place on deck that he's like not in the way, but where he can like see the water, like
Okay.
get a view.
Do you want to be up by the prow, like towards the front, like looking over the open sea as it's coming, like as you're plying through it,
Yeah,
or do you want to?
I think
Okay.
he'd probably like want to see what's coming.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, easy enough. Nobody seems to be getting in your way or like making it seem like any areas are restricted. You make your way up to the deck. There are a couple of people moving around, doing various tasks, and you can make your way up there. There's even there's like railings across the side, but there's an open space in the very front. And there's like a bit of like not grates because it's wood, but there's like some slats in the wood where you can see the water washes over and can drain out through like a draining system to keep from the deck getting too wet all the way across, and it's almost like it's intentional that there's a very easy place to sit or stand right there as the railings open up and like above the figurehead, and there's that like walkway that which name escapes me that I had written down at some point, and I can't find right now. But you could easily sit or stand up there, and it's actually really pleasant, especially since you're not being impacted by like the movement of the water. Like it's a really nice night. The breeze is like cool but not chilly. It's like really fresh, salty air.
How high are like the underdeck ceilings and things?
Okay. You're right, because you're really tall. It's
I'm
a
tall,
brigantine,
yeah.
so it's not like super tiny. I think you are verging on like, okay, so are you 7 foot with the horns or before the horns?
Probably with the horns.
With the
'Cause he's
horns.
like 6'8" before.
6'8",
I think.
okay.
Yeah.
I know he's like typically depicted crowd like kind of leaned over. Is 7 foot when he's leaning over, or is that like
No, I'd say standing up. Like
So,
he's
like, the
hunched over
straight-
a lot, just because he's like, hey guys.
The tall person hunch that we all get when we grow
Yeah.
tall before everyone
Yeah.
else. Yeah.
Yep.
Everybody kind of like almost everybody nods knowingly.
The tall people.
Mhm, yeah.
I am average.
Yeah, I'm not that tall.
Okay, well then just the tall people nod knowingly.
6'2"? I guess for my area that like it doesn't. There's a dude who towers over me that I'm like
They
I
grow
don't
'em big out
feel
there.
that tall.
Yeah, well, it's a northern thing. Northerners grow bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of the like the ancestry, like Scandinavian heritage will like just they're tall people. Like in America, the average height for masc people is 5'10", and average for women is 5'6", and in the Netherlands, the average height for a woman is 5'10".
Hmm.
So I'm a freak
Yeah,
here,
sounds about right.
but average height in the Netherlands.
Gotta go there.
I know, right? I was like, this has been my problem all along. I just needed to exist among people who were like at the same elevation as me. Nice night, nice clean air. The height of the below decks at 6'8", you're every once in a while as the ship is kind of like moving with the water and there's like a bit of like a swell and you kind of have to it's not like violent, it's very gentle, but you still like when you're on a boat you sometimes kind of have to like counter for that, and you'll kind of like boop the top
Right.
of the ceiling, the wood there every once in a while with a horn.
All right. I think Morthos, like, he's been on a ship before, but hasn't loved it. And so I'm just gonna lay low. Like I'm gonna get in my hammock and chill there and just, try to ride out however the ride's gonna go for now. Cause he's like, the last time I was on a boat, it was not a fun experience.
That's fair. Okay. Anything else in particular? If not, we shall move on.
I know Cookie would probably be curious to check out the kitchen.
That's fair. Okay. So it's pretty easy to find. There's sort of like that metallic sound of pots and pans being moved around that seems like very distinct from the wooden, creaky, ropey sounds of the rest of the ship. There is a lower deck that seems to be kind of like an area for eating, and there is what looks to be like a small kitchen there. There is some plating around the cooking area, so it looks like it's not super easy for it to catch fire. Everything is just kind of like a little bit moist because you're on a ship, but it looks like they took some extra precautions here. There's like a small cooking area. There's a lot of very efficient storage. And you see, I'm going to do something interesting going forward. I think will be fun with some NPCs. Roll me a 1d100, please.
1d100. A 54.
Okay. All right. So you see a elven-looking person there. They've got a very well-loved apron on, like lithe build. They're actually pretty pale compared to everyone else around them. It seems like they probably spend most of their time below deck. And something else of note, they have this long, almost like uncharacteristically long silver hair sweeping down their back. It's very put up, obviously, so the hair is not getting in the food. And they have the kind of like very keen blue eyes. How close do you think you're going to, like, are you going to come kind of like do like a close sort of like see what's going on? Or like once you see it from a distance, you think you'll stop and kind of take in
I
the
think
sight?
she would kind of go in fairly close, but like kind of like cautiously because she doesn't want to like intrude on the space. But she is definitely very curious and wants to get up and close to the kitchen and see what the whole setup is about.
Okay, perfect. So unless you're making any effort to like hide your approach, there's kind of like a sweeping turn, not in like a startled way, but in kind of like, oh, there's somebody approaching me sort of way
Mhm.
as this person turns around. And go ahead and make just a quick perception check for me.
Sure. Perception 7.
Okay. So you're elven yourself, and you have a good idea of how to guess ages, as you did pretty well with Elio. This person looks like they're on the verge of being probably pretty long lived. Like there's just that sense about them. You don't see any of the signs of an elven person getting older, but they have just this air about them that is like known to you when you meet someone that you know has like lived. They've done a lot of
Mm.
living, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly that might entail, you're not sure.
Sure.
So they turn, and a very broad smile spreads across their face. Would it be easy to tell when someone looks at you that you spend a lot of time in kitchens? Do you think?
I think she would be. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I know you've got some supplies, and like I think in my head, the bag of colding, like canonically, kind of does like, you know, when you open up like a freezer and there's that little bit of like a steam. I feel like that's
Oh,
always
yeah.
just kind of like trickling out the edges a little bit. So they turn, and there's a very bright smile to that they kind of like flash to you. Oh, you must be one of the passengers we're taking on board.
Oh, yes. Hi, I'm Cookie. I'm a baker, and I've never been on a ship before, so I just really was curious on how your whole kitchen setup is. What's your name?
Oh, I'm Turgon.
Nice to meet you, Turgon.
Interesting. I like. Thank you. Nice to meet you as well. I like your name. Being a baker named Cookie. It's like you are a treat who makes treats.
She's a snack.
Wow.
Snack.
Yeah, baking. I come from a long line of baking elves, I guess you can say. So it's kind of like runs in the family.
Do you think like the colors you wear or anything like that would denote the Keebler specifically? Or no? It's fine either way.
I still think she's trying to keep the Kebler name a
Kebler.
little bit on the down low since they just left. So maybe I would say she's probably not wearing something that like says I'm a Kebler.
She's not wearing her name
Per
tag,
se.
her company name.
Hello.
I'm
Yeah,
not wearing like the sigil on her like little uniform or anything like that. So
Okay, perfect. And I think without that, it's not incredibly. It's not like you have, like you said, like a sigil or symbolism that's very super specific to that. And if you did, you could have found a way to easily cover that. So,
sure.
so there's kind of like a moment where they like step back and they kind of like look you up and down in like just a general like observational way, and they're like, "Well, come here. I've actually." You might find this interesting. I've come up with something that I think is kind of clever for specifically baking, maybe even on a ship. And they wave you
okay.
over behind their counter, and they've got a very interesting looking like range and oven sort of setup. It looks like, actually, go ahead and make just like an investigation or a perception check, whichever you'd prefer.
Okay, let's see here. I'll do perception.
Okay.
An 18.
Nice. So they begin to explain kind of like a little bit about how the thing works. But as soon as they open up, there's like a door on the top, and then there's like a smaller sort of like tray that comes out on the bottom. And they've got like an exhaust almost system hooked up that appears to go outside of the ship in some way. And you can tell that what they've done is they've found a way to like circulate warm air without there having to be as much fire. So it's a very low fire, like low risk for a ship way of being able to actually do some decent like cooking. It's almost like a convection oven. It's pretty like inventive, ingenuitive actually. And as they're just kind of beginning to explain it to you, and you've already kind of like at a glance, just with your experience, be able to kind of already tell what's going on.
Wow, this is a very innovative way to do any baking on a ship. I've never seen something like this, but it just makes total sense once you see it.
Oh, thank you. I thought so too. Did you bring a wolf on board with you? Is that what we've got?
There actually is a wolf on board. So
Are they allowed treats?
I think so.
I've had some canned pumpkin puree I've been waiting to make into something wonderful. I was going to make a pie, but I might just actually make some treats for the dog.
I think he would love that.
Do you want to help?
Absolutely. I would love to.
So he waves you over to some like, they've got a pretty, maybe not ingenuitive, but also it's a really clever storage system. There are things set into the walls, and when you open like the doors to the cabinets, everything is like secured within the cabinet as well, because it's a ship, things move around. So this way, like cans and things aren't rolling back and forward. There's like secure ways of storing everything. So you can spend as long as you want. They'll sit with you and devise a way to make some pumpkin-based treats for Rascal, and full enthusiasm. They're very nice, very cheerful, very charismatic, and I think you can even tell, and you probably feel this too, that's sort of like, somebody who like really appreciates this thing that I love. So you probably have a wonderful time making some treats with them. Very easy to get along with, very kind person.
Oh my gosh, yeah. That sounds great. It's like, I feel like she absolutely is like, it's nice to like kind of be back in her element a little bit, since she's kind of been away even though she was like in the kitchen at the Violet Scepter, she wasn't being herself. Yeah. So she's like, she feels like she can kind of let her guard down and have some fun and do that.
I love that. Yeah. And they're just so like chatty, but in a nice way, not prying. So you can have like a nice, comfortable time, just sort of like baking and feeling like everything's going to be okay,
Yeah.
I love that. Is there anything you're doing in particular, Bear? We've got Morthos setting up the hammock, kind of like hunkering down, settling in. I almost said Bryce. Obviously not. Fergus has gone and is above decks doing something somewhere. Anything striking your fancy?
I don't think Bear's been on a boat before, so just kind of like looking around at the water and being like, neat.
Okay. Yeah. So you're above decks too, just kind of like taking in the sights.
Sure, yeah.
You've been a bear for a long time. You've only been a human again or whatever for, a few days. And you've been in kind of like land-locked foresty situations for so long. How do you think Bear feels about it? This fresh sea air and like the salt and the movement?
I think she likes it.
Okay, nice. Like if that's something that strikes your fancy, I feel like she's kind of having like, she's probably feeling like the sense of like adventure, right? Like you're heading out on the open sea. Yeah, freedom. Like you're getting away from the kind of complicated situation you've been in. And it's really is just kind of like, there's a bit of like a bustle as people are completing various tasks and stuff, but there's kind of like this sense of like peace and adventure. Like you're on a path towards something exciting that really kind of like stirs your spirit in a good way. Cool. So there's a moment, Belladonna, where everyone's kind of like, they finish up their chatting, like Bear and Fergus kind of like take off to head upstairs. Morthos kind of like leans in, settles down, gets comfortable. Cookie has gone off, and you start to hear, some clanking and cooking sounds from somewhere down below. And you and Elio and Morthos are still kind of like in this area, and Elio kind of looks around and is like, well, I think I'm going to go see what the place kind of looks like. Do you want to go too?
That's a great idea. We should scout.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yep.
They kind of like sidestep out of the curtain and are like standing there expectantly waiting for you.
Okay, I follow.
Okay. So they'll kind of like make their way around. It looks like they are genuinely taking in like their surroundings, but there's like a sense of like purpose to asking you if you wanted to go with them. Like they're looking around, but then they'll look back at you and like ask some inane question like, "Oh, do you think this means anything?" And just talking about the various like accoutrements lying around. Like, "Why do you think they have so many hammocks? There's way more hammocks here than there are people." And like questions like that. And when they've kind of like led you further away from everyone, kind of stop and like look around for a moment. Um, Lilia wanted me to tell you something.
All right, I'm all ears.
She has spent some time trying to find out more information about all of you, just to kind of have a good idea of who she's dealing with. Not in an untrusting sort of way, but it is good to know your business partners, especially if you're definitely trust one of them, but the rest of them are a little bit of wild cards. And she said that she has found out that you might have some people that are important to you that are maybe in trouble a little bit. You don't have to tell me
Yeah.
too much or anything really, but she knows that there's something going on, and of course the guild is we all help each other if there's something. Everybody helped with my brother. So if you need something or if there's information that you would like, we could try to find more information for you.
I appreciate the insight. I of course don't regret that she has found any of this information, but at the time, I am not looking for assistance from the guild.
Okay, that's fine. She's probably going to end up just cataloging anything that we happen to come across, like passively anyway, because information is really the best source of power that there actually is. But I'll let her know that it shouldn't be a specific path, and that way she won't look into it actively.
Thank you. That is the best course of action for now.
They're going to kind of like give you it's like they're not actually trying to hide anything, but you can tell they're trying to like study your face and figure out how you're feeling, and there's no like satisfaction that passed over their face where they're like, "Oh, okay, I see that they're fine," or "Oh no, I can tell they're upset." They just look like a little bit confused and then sort of, "Okay, well, sorry."
No need to apologize.
Thank you. The ship seems nice.
Yeah. Do you want to see if there's any fun places to hide?
Yes.
you play hide. I will totally seek you later. I will not go with the other.
Wait, no, I'm not trying to bully the child. Stop.
How high do you know how to count to? Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, they look super excited now. Like this has clearly been something like, what's your passive insight? Just like 10 plus your insight modifier? I feel like it was like
11.
At least, yeah. So like you can tell this individual has kind of like, this was like a task that they were given that they had been kind of like sitting on for a while. And there's like this palpable relief when they like, okay, that's out of the way now. Find some cool places to hide. Let's go. And like the demeanor changes, not in like a whole total personality shift, but like they're excited and they're just like, yeah, lead the way.
Awesome. And I'm excited to find places to hide.
I love it. Go ahead and make an investigation check with advantage. We'll say that y'all spend some time just kind of like making your way around and looking for dark corners and loose boards and.
All right. Well, with advantage, I rolled a 10.
Okay.
Or I got a 10, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So you do find a couple of places. It doesn't look like this is like a smuggler's ship, so you didn't find anything super interesting or like secret compartments. But there are, down in like the cargo storagey area on the bottom, like where the small mess area and the cooking area is. There are a couple of places you can like sneak into between barrels where you are so confident that unless somebody came specifically to that area, no one would ever see you. And that's like pretty satisfying, especially given there's really no fun secrets about that you could find anyway about the ship like this. So
Take it.
Yeah,
Victory.
lovely. Go ahead. What did we decide? You have cooking tools, right, Cookie? And you have proficiency in those. Go ahead and make me a cooking check with advantage since you are being assisted as well.
Sure.
Good thing for that advantage.
Yeah, with advantage, I got a 12.
Yeah. I mean, this is something. You're proficient in cook's utensils, or do you have expertise? Is it just proficiency bonus, or is it doubled proficiency bonus?
Think she's expert. It's plus 7, so
Yeah, it's plus 7, so
that would
probably
have to be
expertise.
yeah, it's just bad rolls.
So, well, and so the thing is, if you have proficiency or expertise, you're always going to get more out of something than someone didn't.
Oh, sure.
You're on a ship that's sailing.
Yeah.
There's very basic supplies here. Like there's no cake flour, there's no almond flour, there's no like finely milled anything. It is all-purpose flour. You have some fresh eggs that have to be washed before you can like crack them, things like that. The canned pumpkin puree is not expired. Not the freshest thing ever. And the peanut butter is very much like you kind of pull out some spices you have on hand, and your compatriot Turgon kind of like reaches into like a hidden little place and pulls out something a little fun smelling, and it's very much like MRE field ration peanut butter, and you manage to dress that up in a safe way for an animal. And given the supplies that you had just like on hand, and that this was spur of the moment, you managed to shape some nice little, well, actually, what shapes do you make the little treats?
My first instinct was just, like little bones, of course, like little dog bones.
Yeah. Turgon follows suit. You start making the bone. They kind of like laugh to themselves like, oh, perfect. You managed to shape some. They look good. You put them in the oven. You can kind of like smell it beginning to cook like you can with a normal oven, but the aroma is definitely a little bit more present since there's so much air circulating, and it's not exactly like an airtight compartment. So you can tell when they're done by the way they smell. You take them out. They look beautiful. This is basically like, this is the best anyone could have done with the supplies that you had, and a human could eat them if you wanted to try them. He picks one up and breaks a piece off the side and kind of...
Cookie would try it too. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, you bite into it, and it's like, they're very pumpkin-y and peanut buttery, so if those are flavors you like, then like that's pleasant. But honestly, like it's nice and crumbly. It's got a good crunch to it. They're not overcooked. They're not undercooked. Like these are cookies that a human or like a humanoid could eat and be satisfied with, and honestly are pretty good, all things considered. So like Rascal is just going to have the time of his life, and you had just enough to make about a dozen of them. And they're good size, like wolf size dozen,
You know what? These are pretty darn good for being on a boat, for baking on a boat.
Yeah, that pumpkin was a little old. Still good, not poisoning the animals or anything, but yeah. Oh, it's really nice to spend some time in the kitchen with someone who knows what they're doing. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to be good pals.
It's gonna be a nice couple of days. I agree. Well, I'll get this cleaned up. You don't worry about that. But I'm gonna keep one of these and come give it to what's their name?
Rascal.
Oh, lovely.
He's
I love
a cutie.
animals. I bet he is. I'll be over there probably tomorrow. I'll come by in the daylight hours and make sure it's okay. Bring a treat for him.
And she'll go like, here, and pull like a little baggie of cookies or whatever out of her bag and be like, here's some stuff I made earlier this evening. Like that you can have.
thank you. He looks so excited, just like takes it, opens a bag, starts smelling all of the individual cookies to see like what differences there might be about them, and just looks thoroughly pleased. Like, oh, what a gracious gift. Thank you so much. And then kind of like realizes that there are people about, like in the distance, not super like crowding you or anything, and kind of like ties it closed and hides it in a pocket. These are mine and no one else's. But they look excited and very graciously thank you as they start to kind of like clean up the general area. Cleaning up is like it's a ship. They're going to wipe everything down and make sure it's as clean as possible.
Right.
No sanitization going on, but definitely like a good effort.
Cool.
Yeah. And Morthos, how tired do you think you are after all this?
I think Morthos is not super tired, but he's like he's not doing so hot. Like,
okay.
He didn't think about it in the moment, but he was like reminded, oh, the last time I was on a ship, I got pretty sick, or I felt pretty sick. And so he's laying in his little cot hammock and just like tracing his finger along like wood grain on the wall, just like trying to take his mind off of it, just laying there, just
like working himself up. Yeah. Okay. So how that sort of feeling goes is really up to Morthos, I think. If eventually he finds like the gentle waves that you're encountering right now to like not kind of like spur that to be any further, I'll leave that to you, because this really is kind of more about like his internal processing. But you will be glad to know as time moves on, whether you do or do not fall asleep, that it doesn't seem like anything's getting choppy or churny throughout the evening. There was no talk or banter of any of the sailors moving around about how it looks like there's a storm coming. So you at least have some solace for the evening of knowing that you're not going to wake up like swinging wildly from side to side or anything like that. All right. Anything else anyone wants to do in specific?
Does Cookie come like up on the up of the ship? The top part of the ship?
deck?
Probably if it's around. Was it dark?
Yes.
It was dark. All right. She would like to come up and take a look at the stars for sure.
I think like Frigus has kind of always been looking around and stuff, seeing what the other people were doing and stuff. And then when Cookie comes up, he kind of like he like watches her a little bit and sees if she kind of gets over by his zone at all.
Yeah, I would imagine you're at the front.
Yeah.
She would probably naturally walk up towards the front. Absolutely.
Hey Cookie, how you doing tonight?
Hey, Fergus. Oh, I'm doing great. I actually just did some baking down in the kitchen with the cook down there, and it was a really fun time. How have you been?
Oh, not much to do, so just watching the stars. You have a pretty big family, don't you?
Yeah, the Cavaliers do go back a ways.
What, if you don't mind me asking, does your like family have any like traditions when someone passes?
Yeah, we typically have a little get-together ceremony and do like a celebration of their hopefully long life that they had with their family members and loved ones, and usually have a big bonfire in the forest and with a bunch of flowers all around, and we try and have it more of like a happy time rather than a sad time.
Frigus just kind of like smiles at that. He looks like he had been just kind of like thinking as he like stared at the stars, and he goes, My mom and dad came from very different places. My mom was very royal, and they had big paintings put up where you could see everyone from her lineage in their hallway. It was, all that. But my dad's side was much more rough and tumble. They didn't, have much, and they kind of passed down the family through their stories. And something my dad told me about our family, we were all pretty like strong fighters, and all had something that made us great, of either we fought strong or drank well or did something. And he told me one night as we stared up at the stars that if a bog made a real name for themselves, the stars would paint their story. And he pointed up at a few of them, and Fergus kind of starts pointing at some stars. Up there's supposed to be my great-grandpa, Robolt. And dude was supposed to be able to in one hand drink a keg, like just hold an entire keg, and arm wrestle 10 guys at the same time.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and then over there he kind of points at what just kind of looks like a rough shape, and is like, that was my great grandma. There was a fight with the neighboring tribe, and she killed like 100 guys, like biggest slaughter, like didn't even touch her.
On her own?
Yeah, like I didn't believe it, but like Fergus just kind of points at the little stars and like, if she's up there, it's got to be true. And he just kind of like looks around the stars and stuff, like he's like looking for something, and he's like, I haven't found my parents yet. I'm sure they're there somewhere. They just haven't, like, no, I haven't seen them. There's a lot of stars, but they would be up there. They were amazing.
Of course. And she like kind of walks up and like gives you like hugs your big arm around, and it's like, I'm sure they're up there. The sky is a very big place, so I'm sure you just haven't seen them yet.
And Fergus just kind of like smiles a little bit, and then just kind of like grabs his shoulder and like, oh. Anyway, how are you enjoying the boat?
The boat is great. I've never really been on one before, and I've always just been in the forest, so it's a very exciting experience so far, and it's absolutely beautiful out here.
That's good. I'm glad you're having a good time. And he just kind of goes, would you just, if you're not too tired, would you just mind sitting here with me for a bit while we stare at the stars?
Of course.
And then he just kind of like sits there with her in silence.
So good.
That was really good.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you.
Is Bear just like sitting there?
No, Bear's on the opposite end of the boat. Definitely not listening to this. Definitely not.
So for you, Bear, I feel like after you got kind of like, you got to like walk around the deck, kind of like see what everybody's doing, like take in the situation. You've got this feeling of like adventure kind of like spurring inside of you. And you notice that like on a brigantine, the aft side of the ship is elevated a bit. And that's where it's a story about that. the aft side of the ship is elevated a bit, where the navigator, where the wheel to control the rudder for the ship is, and there's a few people up there. And I feel like whether it was because she saw like this interaction start, or whether she had like naturally just like gravitated towards that side of the ship, it would be like kind of having that opportunity to kind of like stand up and really get like a good look at like the horizon and watching like the land leave. It makes sense that she would be back there. Unless you continue just like moving around the ship, you'd get to overhear the conversation between like the navigator and the helmsman, and they're pointing out like constellations and mapping their routes. So you'd be able to passively kind of like listen to what could or could not to bear be an interesting conversation, talking about like pointing out the constellations in the sky and things like that.
Not listening.
That's fine. Totally fine.
Might try to climb the mast. I don't know.
Okay.
Come up there and sit up there in the crow's nest.
Yeah, sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you make your way over to the mast, no one seems to stop you. It doesn't look like they're too super concerned with you all like causing trouble, right? Like if it's such a time that they need to stop you, they probably would, but they all seem pretty chill with you all moving about as necessary. So you make your way over to the mast, you start climbing up, no one stops you, make it up into the crow's nest. There is a person up there. It's there's enough space in here for you to easily kind of like make your way and stand up there with the other person. And there's a little like a box attached to the mast that extends above where the crow's nest is. And so go ahead and roll me a 1d100. We'll do the same thing for you.
Okay.
67.
So close.
Oh, I clicked it and it didn't happen. Oh shit, it did happen. It happened twice.
It's okay.
The first one is a 67.
This is so perfect. Okay. So you kind of like hoist yourself up into this crow's nest and you see a tiefling person there. She looks like she's probably about like middle age. She's got a little bit of like lines to her face, and it's easier to see up here with like the starlight as bright as it is. She looks like fit, but she's definitely very like curvy. She's wearing very like still sailor appropriate, but she's definitely got a little bit more of like a sensual aspect to her dress. She doesn't have any gray hair, but she does have that, like I said, with like a few lines around her eyes, enough to tell you that she's just a little bit older. She's got these bright violet eyes. And the horns that she has, they're not like super large and present, but they do kind of curl around her head, almost like a crown. It gives a very like regal appearance to her. She's kind of like leaning against the side of the railing up there, looking out with a spyglass. And as you kind of hoist yourself up, she looks over and she just kind of gives you a smile and flips open the box. And there's 2 more spyglasses up there, kind of like fastened into it. And just kind of gestures. She doesn't say anything. Just kind of gestures at it in case you'd like to take one and get a good look around.
Yeah, Bear grabs one and says, "Hey, neat," and starts looking at stuff.
Yeah, they're very useful.
You see anything cool lately?
Well, I think all the stars are cool and they still tell interesting stories. But it does seem to be a quiet night in terms of ships on the horizon.
Okay. All right.
Go ahead and make a perception check for me just to get a general idea of like what she has on her, to kind of like take in the person that you're looking at.
Rolled a 17. Very high for Bear.
Nice. It's a small space. There's a whole lot of nothing but water to look at, and this was a person. So she's talking to you, and you're kind of like taking in what she's saying and like the surroundings of like her and what she's got on her. And you notice there's like a couple of like kerchiefs tying some things to one of her belts, and she has a little pack that's fastened to it that's made of like netting. And there are these sort of like not shiny like bright and luminous, but shiny like they're catching the moonlight in a way that paper doesn't normally do. And it looks like she's got maybe like a set of playing cards or something like attached in a bag on her belt. And she just kind of like smiles as you ask if she's seen anything interesting after she answers and says, "Why don't you take a look and see if you see anything interesting?"
If I was so inclined, this would be a really good time for Bear to hit on her. I'm just saying.
That is totally fine if that's something that Bear would do.
I don't
go
think
for
so.
it.
I don't think so.
Okay.
But anyway.
Explore something. You're gonna learn something about Bear right now.
Yeah. Bear's awakening. Sorry, go ahead.
She's just gonna, I don't know. I guess, can I just look and see if I see anything through the spyglass around the horizon?
Absolutely. Go ahead and make a perception check with advantage.
Oh. Ooh, second one. I rolled a 19.
What was the first one?
We don't need it. It wasn't real. But the 19 is a nat 20.
Yeah.
So I won.
So I won. So you open up this spyglass to its full length and you kind of start sweeping the horizon. And what you see and really how it makes you feel is almost more important. You get like a perspective that's kind of hard to obtain in any place other than being on the top of a ship in the open ocean. You see like the starlight and the moonlight illuminating the water, and there are sometimes some like shapes moving off in the distance. It looks like some sort of sea creatures are kind of like dancing in and out of waves off to your right, to the starboard side. And to port, to left, you see like clouds off in the distance, but not like angry looking storm clouds. It just looks like some really bouncy cumulus clouds. But from up here and with the spyglass, you can kind of almost see how the moonlight and the starlight illuminate them from like a perspective above, like looking down on it. You can see like the play of light on that. And it's really quite beautiful in this like sort of like serene moment. And as you look out at the stars, this is the closest look at the stars you've ever had. There is like a shine to them that you can't normally see, like almost like a light flare to them. And there's almost a bit of like color that you couldn't even usually notice. Something about them just seems a little bit more alive when you're able to view them like kind of like zoomed in like you can through a spyglass. I'm not going to say you have like a spiritual moment, but there's like a beauty to this, like the calm sea getting like this close look from like a new perspective on things that you haven't necessarily had the opportunity to see before.
Okay. Nice.
looks at the stars and like, man, those are nice.
Yeah. Bear's looking at the stars and she says, nice.
Nice.
What do you see?
They're pretty shiny today. I noticed.
Yeah.
Haven't noticed that before. Yeah.
It's hard to see it with just your eyes.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me borrow your spyglass.
Yeah. Anytime. They're up here.
They're up here. They belong to the boat. They're not even mine.
Does she say that?
No.
I spend most of my time up here.
I can see why. You can see like stuff over there, and then there's some clouds over there. It's pretty cool. I'd probably spend time up here if I stayed on the boat.
Yeah, well, you'll be here for a few days. You're welcome up anytime.
Cool.
Did you see the dolphins?
Yeah, I saw the dolphins. Sick.
Yeah.
I've only seen pictures of dolphins before.
They're very playful creatures.
I think I want to touch one.
Who knows what the future holds?
Who knows? Yep. I saw you had some playing cards. Do you like to play cards?
Oh, these? Well, they are cards that I might play at, but they're not playing cards, so
Oh.
to speak.
I see.
Would you like
I don't
to
see.
have a glimpse into your future?
Yep.
She'll like it's like a drawstring kind of situation. She opens up this little like netted bag and pulls out these, like I said, very, very reflective cards, not shiny. And she takes a bit of care to kind of like shuffle away from the railing so that she doesn't like lose anything. But after she's kind of shuffled her cards a little bit and she like closes her eyes and kind of like gets a feeling for them, it looks like. And she arcs her hand up, and it's like if someone were to spread out cards on a table, they would create a fan, but she's doing it like in the air, as if there was a table in front of her when there isn't. And she kind of like runs her hands over the tops of them, contemplating for a moment until she plucks one out. Let's see what you get.
Ooh.
She's gonna pull from an actual deck.
It's a 4D
Excited about that.
experience.
Yeah. It's easier than trying to find this digitally, right? I'm like, whatever, I'll just do it myself. This is what I would do if we were at a physical too. Oh, look at that. She looks at you and says, 7 of Pentacles.
What's that mean?
Do you know anything about the cards?
No. Mm-mm. I don't know what we're doing exactly, but I'm excited.
Well, this suit is all about material possessions and successes. 7 in particular is an interesting one. It's a time of making decisions. Not necessarily a bad thing, but choosing your path can be an adventure, can be a struggle. You'll have to consider what's really important to you. And when you put energy into something new, that can always bring great reward.
Okay. I'll probably ask Cookie what that means later.
Who's Cookie?
She's my friend. She's down there somewhere.
Oh. I'm sure she's very wise.
Yeah, she knows a lot of stuff. I ask her about everything.
I love it. Oh my god. This whole thing.
Broke mad.
Love it. It's good to have a friend in this world. Someone you can count on.
Yeah. Yep. She keeps me well fed.
Also important.
Very important to me. Yeah, when you said you were talking about stuff that was important to me, that's what I was thinking about. So,
Aww.
Was it food or was it cookie?
It was food.
Cookies.
That moment where we're all like, oh, she thought she was thinking about Cookie. And then it's like, lemon
And Becker's
bars.
like,
No.
what are you guys talking about?
Food is important, not only to our bodies, but to our minds. It's an
Yeah.
experience.
Mm-hmm.
It
Love
nourishes you,
experiencing
but-
it.
Yeah. It invigorates the senses. That's what life's about, right? Small joys.
Yeah, and I never usually look farther than that myself.
It's a good way to live. You'd do well as a sailor.
You think
Every day
so?
is somewhere new.
Now that's an idea.
Never stops being an adventure.
How do you be a sailor? What do you do?
Hire onto a ship.
Hmm.
Learn how to hoist sails. Look through spyglasses.
I can do
Follow
that.
directions. Yes, it seemed to come very naturally to you. I'm quite surprised, actually. Well, I shouldn't say quite surprised, but
It seems like you normally have more of a negative in your perception. Looking
Yeah.
at you, it just seems like you've got a negative perception.
Yeah, just you don't seem super wise to me.
she'll the fan of cards like was still in the air, and she'll kind of like close those up with her other hand and slide the one that she had pulled for you back into it and put that back into her pouch and close it. She just kind of leans back against the railing and starts looking out to sea again. Not like she's like, I'm done with you now, but more just like taking like a relaxed stance.
Yeah, I think Bear's just gonna chill out up there for a while too until
Yeah.
something else strikes her fancy.
Sure. Sounds good. And unless there's anything else anyone plans on doing in particular, the evening comes and goes. Okay, go ahead. Bella?
So Bella is gonna wait till everybody's asleep, but I'm writing a letter to Lilia on one of my paper birds.
Okay.
The letter says, "Thank you. Please share all that you may. Spare what you cannot. I will patiently wait for your guidance. B. P.S. The young one. Must they stay? I fear for our safety, but admit the fear is subjective. I trust your judgment."
Okay, so everyone, it's the first letter of the last.
It's a cipher, yeah, haha.
No, I didn't get quite that deep. It's not too deeply encoded.
Well, I'm sure Bella did, but Darian didn't.
Yeah. Bella's way more creative than Darian is, TBH.
I think you did beautifully.
Yeah, it sounded great.
Thanks.
Our rabid fan base are like pouring over, like, oh, hold on, okay. So we take that word, and then like alternate them.
I love it. Okay, so you write your letter.
Mhm.
You fold it up. With the way these work, I think I said last time, you kind of like, you do like an initial fold, like it's like you're finished with the thing, and then it folds itself into a bird. So it folds itself into a bird and flies away across the sea. Sorry. So you all make your way back to your hammocks for the evening. There is plenty of space in this little like cordoned off area. It's not like, grandiose, but there's enough space for you to easily move in and out so you don't have to worry about going to sleep at any particular time. It's easy to get in and out and do your own thing. So you make your way whenever seems right to you.
I think Fergus probably fell asleep on the deck.
Okay, that's fine too. Do you think Rascal would have stayed out there with you, or would he have gone down?
I think Rascal has just been kind of like chilling. Like Fergus has been like staring at the stars, giving him little scratches and stuff, and then like he's probably like, as Fergus kind of like was just like looking at the stars and just he's like Fergus or Rascal is just kind of curled up next to him. I don't know if Cookie had pieced out or not.
I feel like Cookie would maybe notice that Fergus fell asleep and would try and find like a little blanket to put over him, and then would just like try and make him a little comfortable, but try not to disturb him, and would then just like quietly probably go back to her hammock.
I love it. That's exactly what I thought that Cookie would do. So I'm glad that is like so like she's just so good. I love her. So you go and it's easy enough to find like the blanket that should have gone with his hammock kind of thing, and you bring it back. And by the time you come back, Rascal has like done the sort of like curl up into like a round ball like a dog does to sleep, but their head is like on Fergus's arm, like they're cuddled up like that. And you're able to kind of like lay the blanket over both of them so that they'll both be warm. And as you do that, one of the other people on the ship, one of the sailors that you haven't really like had too many interactions with, but you've seen them around, they kind of come over and they have, it looks like they're like some sort of like a fasten that's typically used for like the ropes in some sort of capacity, and they're able to kind of like tie one of the corners like and fasten it to kind of like the railing on the front of the ship. And they're kind of like, they give you like a wink and like a quiet motion, and they do that so it's like you can be secure in the knowledge that like the blanket's not gonna like just like fly off in the middle of the night and go into the water. It's like, oh, here, I've got you. This will help them out and keep that there, so that they'll stay warm. So, you get a full rest. You awake feeling like no one seems to be seasick or anything like that. Fergus, you have a little bit of like a I slept on a solid wooden ground without even a pillow kind of soreness.
I feel like Fergus likes nice beds, but like he grew up on shitty beds, so it's not that bad for him.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point, actually. It's probably almost like comforting in a way. And instead of being like that kind of like, oh, I've got a crick in my neck feeling, it might even feel kind of more like waking up, like this feels more natural to me than something big and fluffy. So that's a good point, actually. So actually, no, it doesn't feel bad when you wake up at all. Not even that like, oh, I'm 27 now and I slept with my shoulder funny. Just like totally fine. Yeah. So the morning starts. There's like a general sort of mess call. It seems like just like what you've witnessed so far, there seems to be about like 3 shifts on board based on the way that like meal calls are going. And instead of having like a standard breakfast, lunch, dinner, it seems like what they're serving is like generally just meals, because who knows if this is somebody's first, second, or third meal of the day kind of thing. And they all seem to kind of come and go as necessary. They're moving things around, turning sails, lifting them, lowering them, whatnot. The weather still looks good for the time being. Where would you all say you're spending time just over the course of the next 2 days? Or actually, just tell me this. If you're doing anything in particular, the 2.5-ish days are going to pass and you're going to make it to the next port without like really any issue unless you want to do something.
I feel like after a while of just like not having anything to do, Fergus is going to ask if there's like a fishing pole.
Okay. Yeah. So you ask one of the sailors that's like around on the deck, and they direct you to the ship's cook. And you're able to make your way down there. You meet Targon, and he's kind of like, "Oh yeah, it can be a little bit tricky fishing off of a ship, but here's some things you can use for bait." And it looks like they've got some sort of like old like fish parts from the last catch kind of thing, and they give you like a chum bucket essentially, like a small one, and a very standard basic fishing pole. And point of note, as you come down, he like greets you and is talking to you, absolutely, but is Rascal with you?
Yeah. Rascal's basically always just like following me around.
Okay. So I assumed, but I wanted to make sure and give you the option for that to not have been the case.
And
So
Rascal
here's a
wanders
conversation-
off on his own adventure.
doing his own thing. He's decided to join the dolphins. So very kind, very nice. He has the interaction with you. Like you don't, there's no like negative sense, but you can tell he's like distracted the whole conversation. And then after he hands you like the bait and the fishing pole, he kind of leans in. He's like, "Is that Rascal?"
Yes. How do you know my
He
wolf's name?
like reaches under one of the counters and he pulls out this like really big baked bone. It looks like a fancy treat you would get at one of those like dog shops. He's like, "Is he allergic to pumpkin?"
Fergus kind of like looks down at Rascal. He kind of crocks his head. Is like, no.
Can I give him a treat? I just really love animals. We don't get a lot of dogs on the ship.
Fergus kind of is just like, let him smell it first,
Oh, of course. I'm gonna force feed it to him.
and then let's them go ahead and see if Rascal like is chill with the smell.
Okay. So he'll kind of hold it down like in front of Rascal, like very respectful for approaching any animal. He's not like shoving it in his face. He's not like touching his face without letting him get a chance to like smell him or anything. So do you think Rascal like is this an opportunity for a smell check?
Oh sure,
Mhm.
is a 20.
Okay. So I think you can tell me how Rascal perceives this probably, but nothing smells bad to him. And in fact, like peanut butter is a favorite. Pumpkin he's probably never had before, but in generally it smells good. So he kind of like sniffs at it and like looks up at you.
I think if he like smells it and it looks good, Fergus will just kind of nod at him, and then he'll like like he'll start like biting for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like politely mannered chomp, but definitely like a okay, that's mine now. Like, thank you very much here,
Yep.
as opposed to like a gingerly taking it from him. And Targon looks generally pleased with the enthusiasm with which Rascal consumes the baked pumpkin treat. Ah, wonderful! Thank you so much. I love dogs.
You're welcome. So I'm good to fish.
Yeah, go for it. You're gonna want to fish off the backside of the ship. It's kind of hard off the front. He'll get caught in the boat. Mm.
And then yeah, Fergus just makes his way out. He's never really like fished before. Like he's used to being able to just like the water around his home was very slow, swampy. He just
Mhm.
grabs shit out. So he's just like, I'll figure this out.
Yeah, right? How hard could it be?
I've heard of it. I've seen it. So it'll be simple.
Let's see. Are you proficient in fishing? I don't know if that's like its own skill. I feel like as a ranger, you would be.
Yeah, there's no tools for like a tool set for fishing. I don't think I'm proficient in
Yeah.
playing cards.
So I think as a ranger, generally you're used to like living off the land, and like you said, like you grew up in a swamp, you're used to like aquatic dealings. Now, a swamp is obviously very different than the sea, but fishing is still fishing, right? Like I'm going to say that somebody that's going to listen is going to be like, absolutely not.
I'm sure
But-
swamp fishing is a little bit different of a beast than ocean fishing.
Yeah, but I feel like that still gives you the background you need to like not be completely clueless when it comes to like how to use a fishing hook, how to properly bait a line, like, I feel like you said, there might be some things that you have to get used to, but you're going to be fine. So I feel like maybe just like if you think you'll spend the majority of like the next day and a half or so fishing.
Yeah, probably like he's already just kind of like looked around and just gotten bored. So he's like, hey, at least this is something I can like mess around with for a while.
Okay. Does anybody else, if they saw Fergus start to fish, would you be inclined to join, to want to go fishing too? Because if so, I'll have everybody that would like to do that try to make checks. And if not, though, I'll just continue.
Okay.
No? Okay. All right. Go ahead and let's do 3 survival checks to see just generally how successful you are and what you might be able to acquire in that time.
10, a natural 20 for 22, and then a 15.
Okay. So fishing, is notoriously kind of like it's like an exercise in patience, right? So it starts off and you just spend the majority of the first day with maybe a couple of small bites, but just really not a whole lot of interaction. Towards the end of that first day, it seems like you must have just gotten to a part of the coast where maybe there's just a little bit more activity or something, because you don't really feel like you're doing anything too different, but you managed to bag about 3 good size ocean fish. So let's say like tuna, like a whitefish, right? Tuna or whitefish?
Quickly,
Yeah.
Aaron, what's Animal Crossing ocean fishing? What's in the ocean?
Sea bass, red
There you go.
snapper. I mean,
Yeah.
a tuna is like really freaking huge.
They're
so
huge, yeah.
they're
Yeah.
like 6 feet long. So
But he did get a nat 20.
That's what I
That's
was
true.
thinking. Like
Oh, okay.
a nice couple of big fish. The rest of the time you spend, it's a little bit more like sea bass and snapper, maybe
More
a
like
flounder.
C plus.
Sea basses are super common.
Yeah, there you go.
Probably get 5 sea bass and 1 tuna. Have a good day.
There you go. Right? Yeah. So, like by the end of that portion of the journey, you feel like you've gotten a hang of it. You've had some success. In fact, a couple of the sailors, as they see you bring in a couple of these like really big, like tuna, are pretty impressed and like ask you a couple of questions about like where you learned to fish.
Here.
I just started trying
Yeah.
just now.
I figured out like you kind of like go back and then that way and then it goes, and then when the fish comes, I just kind of like grab the deal and I pull it out, and but I could see. Well, no, he's kind of balanced in his strength and dex, that he's probably like doing a little bit of like in the flicking. He's a little bit better at that, and then when he's like time to reel in, he's going as strength as he can.
Yeah. So a couple of like really watch you as you're doing the casting and trying to like, as you're doing it, they're trying to like replicate your actions to see if they can like get the flick of your wrist down. Like they think that there's like a science to this and that you're like, oh yeah, sure, you just learned how to do this today, you know? So a couple of funny interactions.
Fergus is out here doing the perfect cast.
Oh my God.
Oh, yes.
Power line.
Yes.
I love it. Okay. Is there anything in particular any of you feel like you would do when they stopped at port? They're just resupplying. They're only going to be there for a couple of hours tops.
Every time they stop at port, Bella will wander around each port just to make sure she doesn't like miss any secret signs from anybody in general.
Gotcha. Okay. Go ahead and make an investigation check for me.
I got a 13.
Okay. As you peruse the sort of like port area and generally that section of the cities that you stop in, you notice that there are definite signs of like guild activity. Like there's a mark for offense. You know, there are some like etchings that are signaling that somewhere down like a specific alley is a good place to like lay low if you're like literally actively on the run, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't look like there's any signs that would indicate that there is like a task to pick up or something specific that someone needs. Everything seems pretty business as usual in most places, but you do see signs of like a guild presence. Definitely.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's all I'm looking for.
Okay.
I don't expect anything back yet, but I'm keeping my eyes out, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know that unless somebody had the like something similar to what you have, getting a message back to you would probably like just be a little bit more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
So it might take some time to hear back.
Morthos is getting off the ship. I think he's been just like a butthead to people. Anytime like someone comes by, he's like, oh, like, you know, woe is me. I don't even think I could eat right now, you know, like, but it's like calm waters, but he's convinced himself, right? Like the ship is too bumpy, everything's awful.
Okay. And
so he's going to get off the ship. He's going to immediately feel better and try to find something to eat.
Okay. Do you think you would go pretty far into town? I know what city you're stopping in, but I have to put it up on the lore maps. Or do you think you would just kind of stay near like the port docks area and stop at one of the places that's set up there that the sailors usually go to?
I think he wouldn't go too far because he'd be afraid of missing the ship leaving.
Okay.
Even though like he hates it, but he doesn't want to like miss out and break the rules and get in trouble.
Fair point. Okay. So, interestingly, the stops that you make along the way, the first one is Baldur's Gate. And the second one is Candlekeep. So at both places, Bella, you're able to find, you know, those various signs of life and activity. And at both places, Morthos, you're able to have that sort of like you step off the solid ground beneath you, gives you that sense of confidence and like relief that you need. And you're able to obtain good meals at either place. If you wanted to like get up to trouble in the couple of hours that you have, then you could listen around you to sailors talking about various rumors and things like that. In fact, go ahead and make a general perception check for me. While you're eating, you're going to hear people talking anyway, whether you're actively investigating or not.
9.
Okay. So nothing too specific or like outrageous, but you have in both cities nearby, in Baldur's Gate and in Candlekeep, in just general talk around the port in the like taverns, you've heard a couple of different comments from people about there being like weird sightings off the coast. You
Okay.
don't really catch specifically what they're talking about or like too many details about it, but there's just like general buzz of like people talking about seeing something unusual.
Okay. I think if anything, that's just gonna like brainworm into more of the like, I hate this. I hate the ship. I don't want to be. There's weird things out there. I don't like the ocean. I've decided it's awful.
Listen, everybody should be afraid of the ocean. We know more about space than we know about the ocean. In fact, did you know that there's a whole ocean under our ocean? The ocean
I feel
is
like
terrifying.
I've heard that somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a whole ocean under our ocean. Everybody should be scared of the ocean. Anyway, on that note, yeah. So that's some information that you're able to kind of like passively glean as you're out and about. And you do just, it's almost like as soon as your foot touches the ship, you know, as you just begin to board and you can kind of like feel like the sinking feeling, the anxiety starts to get to you. And it's like you just already almost start to feel sick. Not that you're going to get sick, but just that feeling kind of washes over you.
Yeah.
It's just like, ugh, I knew it.
Just whiny Morthos. Just
I love it. Okay. Anything else in particular anyone would be doing before you take off from Candlekeep? You do all know that once the ship departs from the Candlekeep area and the small island surrounding that you'll just be heading straight across the Sea of Swords to Alaron. You don't have to be doing anything in particular, just giving you the opportunity.
Yeah, I don't think Cookie would do too much. Maybe she just pick up some ingredients here and there from little shops that are close by, but she wouldn't stray too far also.
Yeah, ports almost have like a market of their own, and you can get so many things from that sort of like port market because the ships are bringing all the goods in. So pretty much anything that she wants to pick up and has the money for, she should be, especially if it's like ingredients, you have no problem coming across anything that's in season. If it's out of season, you might have a little bit more trouble, but this far south, you should be good with anything. I think we're heading into the like late fall, basically. I think we're heading into fall, right? Or no, it was summer. So we're heading into fall is what it is. What is time? Meh. Okay. Yeah. So anything you want, we can like, if you want to talk specifics, we can like sit down and look at ingredients later, but I'll just generally, I'm not that pedantic, like, or tedious. Like I will assume that you can just like restock yourself basically.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So, you set sail once more, and you know that there's about another 2.5 days before you reach the shores of Alaron. You know that there's about like a midway point where there are some small islands that you'll pass by. There's no intention to stop there, but they're giving you information of like, if there's a storm, we might have to stop for a bit, depending upon how bad it is, but we should be there in a couple of days. So you depart that next morning, or like the ship has already left, but the night was pretty uneventful. And as you all kind of like wake up on that third morning, there is a little bit more of a bustle about the crew. There just seems to be like a sense of like energy to them, not necessarily like positive or negative. It's almost like everybody is like preparing just in case, like, you know, they talked about things that could go amiss and there's more energy put into the sailing today. Anything in particular anyone wants to do on the third day?
I guess by still fishing.
Still fishing? Okay, go ahead and make me another survival check.
Nat 1
Okay.
for 3 total.
Getting further away from the coast where a lot of like there's usually a lot of like concentrations of life, and it's just easier generally to do that type of fishing. When you get out into the open water, then being that close to the surface is a little less likely. And so even though you see like aquatic life and activity, you don't seem to get any bites, unfortunately, on the third day. So Morthos, do you think you would be spending time below decks mostly, or do you think you'd be wandering around the deck trying to get fresh air, or what do you think?
I think the longer you spend on the ship, the more he'd be willing to like roam around a little bit, but not like not looking to go up the crow's nest or anything like that. Just like finding a place to sit, just like a little seat here or a stool near a wall or something. Just like,
Gotcha.
but can still be topside or something.
Give you a sense of stability, the wall behind you. Okay. So towards the late afternoon on that third day, you're out in the open ocean. You have seen the shore kind of like fall completely away behind you. Where would each person be in the ship? There's the deck. There's the sort of like middle decks where is like the sleeping sort of area. And then there's the below deck where there's like cargo mess hall, kitchen stuff.
I think Cookie would want to be. I can kind of see her maybe hanging out with Holly a little bit, maybe playing some instruments together. Maybe they're hanging out and having a little jam session.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, she would be so excited for that. You approach and want to play any kind of music, and her lyre is out and she's ready to go. Go ahead and make a performance check.
Ooh.
And let's say with advantage because again, you have, someone you're playing with.
Here we go. 23, 28, nat 20.
Nice.
Okay.
Man, Cookie's just unstoppable, multi-talented.
I know. Bards, man. Bards. Okay. So Morthos is above deck. Do you think you're on deck playing or do you think y'all are in a different section of the ship?
I think on deck playing would be cool.
That seems so
with the crew and stuff that can listen and
I'm getting very like Sea of Thieves vibes, right? Like just like playing on the deck. A better question is anyone below decks or is anyone generally like is most everyone like above decks? You don't have to be, just kind of getting an idea of where everyone is in the ship.
Probably the back fishing.
Fishing, yeah.
I Bella would very rarely be on the top deck.
Okay. What about Bear?
Never loved the crow's nest.
Bear will very rarely be anywhere but the top deck and the crow's nest.
Okay. Perfect.
Also, Bella is almost always hanging out with Elio.
Yeah. Elio is like not following you around in like an annoying little sibling kind of way. Like they're content to kind of do their own thing. But if at any point, like you seem receptive to them just kind of like tagging along with whatever you're doing, they're absolutely doing that. Not like, so like you have the freedom to go do something else if you want to, but they will most happily like accept your company at every moment.
Perfect.
I love it. Okay. So the evening has moved on. It's the third day. Cookie and Holly are playing a sort of like lively tune. The way I see it is like you're talking with Holly and she starts playing something and you kind of like join in a company because she's like, oh, let me teach you like a sailing song kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like there's this like shanty going on. She starts singing. There's like call and answers between her and the crew. And there's
fun.
there's just generally like a really high positive energy sense about this as you're just kind of like plowing through the water. The sun's high in the sky. The like air is fresh and the mood is good, right? I need everyone who's above deck to make a perception check for me, except for Cookie, who is just like absolutely wondering everyone with her raw musical talent here.
Frigus got a 10.
Okay.
Bear's perception has drastically changed from last time, and we are hitting with a 1.
Actually, question for you. Do you think at this point you would be up in the crow's nest? Or do you think you would be...
Yes.
Okay, so if at any point you're up in the crow's nest and you're using like a spyglass, then you're going to have advantage.
Okay, let's get another go.
Mm-hmm.
Oh!
It's backwards, apparently.
Somehow.
So I'm using the spyglass backwards. That was a crit fail, y'all.
I got a crit
She went from 1 to
0.
No.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
but advantage, you take the higher score.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. So it's a 1. It is not a crit
It is
fail.
a 1
It's
up there. Yeah, my friend is just
You
like
did not critically
those
fail
natural
today.
spyglass skills I was showing, just gone. Just gone.
I love the idea of like she's sitting up there like looking out of hers and she glances over it and sees you're accidentally holding yours backwards and she's just like laughs to herself and is about to like reach up to like turn it around.
Bear just forgot how it worked, that's all.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see what it was the other way. I just happened to be trying it.
Yeah. If this one zooms in, maybe this one zooms out.
Morthos got 17.
And Rascal got an 8.
Show offs.
I think this is actually really fitting, especially for Morthos right now. You're kind of feeling anxious, right? Like you've got this brain worm of like the sea just not being a place for you. There's like weird things people are talking about. You kind of almost can't even remember what it was they said because you were just so relieved to be on land and like whatever. This is something that's like nervous to me. Like this information's nervous, so I will take it in, but I'm kind of like shoving it to the back of my mind. And you are like almost kind of starting to feel better at how like lively the environment is right now. Like nothing's gone wrong. Everyone's in a really good mood. There's just like cool music playing. The whole crew seems to like know some song all together.
Yeah,
it's like
everyone's
out of a
vibing.
storybook. Yeah, everybody's vibing. And you just catch a glimpse as you're kind of like looking out and surveying the situation from your seat of something in the water with a 17, not proficient, but with a 17, you see like the ocean's kind of sparkly, right? Like the sun kind of dances off of it and like the light moves around. But this is a bit different. This is like there's a color to it that at first like catches your eye, but you can't really like pinpoint. And as you kind of stare after this catches you and that good feeling that was starting to build in you kind of like drains out and these thoughts of there was something in the water start kind of like repeating themselves in your head. You catch like a dark shape that looks like a really long fish and like an orange color to it that is just really foreign for the blue of the water. And that's what draws your attention. And then you are the first person to hear a voice that seems to be kind of coming from somewhere off ship. And it's got sort of this like resonant but like muffled sense to it that's hard for you to pinpoint. A song begins to call to you from down below, waves breaking upon the bow, going slow, very slow, a glass pulled up to your eyes to spy beneath the waterline.